Welcome to Good Conversation. I am Phill Nosworthy. Each episode, I get to speak with people who have changed the way we work and lead, and I get to bring you along for the ride. Today, friends, is very exciting. I get to introduce you to Jill. Jill Bolte Taylor is one of the most remarkable thinkers in neuroscience today, and someone I've had the privilege of working with before. Her New York Times best-selling book, My Stroke of Insight, is one of the highest-selling titles in the past 20 years, and its impact has been massive. Time named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world, and her TED Talk remains one of the most watched of all time. Jill is a Harvard-trained neuroscientist who survived a major stroke. But she studied it as it happened and then spent 8 years rebuilding her brain. When we were building the list of guests for this first season of Good Conversations, Jill's name was one of the first that I wrote down. You see, everywhere she goes, she inspires and surprises and teaches people. Her blend of scientific insight, lived experience, humor, precision, humanity, well, it's unlike anything else in the leadership world. And I think what Jill offers leaders is rare. She shows them that their brain is beautiful, and she shows it to them from the inside out. She makes the invisible architecture of emotion and conflict and clarity and decision-making very visible. And then, with absolute grounded practicality, she gives leaders a way to work with it. I think you're going to love this. Here's Jill.
I think the world of you. I mean, I was literally just saying this before we hit the record button, but of all the humans that we have ever asked to join us in our experiences with leaders, you are one of my absolute favorites. Your ideas have been the stickiest for anybody that's come to share. You're the person whose conversations I recall maybe most. You've been a voice in my ear for many, many years now. I'm so grateful for it. Now, I said this as well before, just joking, but there still might be a few people on the world. I reckon it's probably like 3 or 4 who still haven't read your book. But as far as credentials are concerned, let me roll out your resume for folks who are still getting to know Jill Bolte Taylor. A PhD at Indiana State, Harvard trained, Harvard practicing neuroanatomist, Amazon put you on their list of top 100 books of the last 25 years. Unbelievable from a selling perspective. One of the most watched TED Talks in history. Clearly a favorite with Oprah, Super Soul Sundays. Time Magazine named you one of the most influential humans in the world at a certain point. It's been remarkable. But there was a certain moment where it all stitched together that I would love for you to kind of take us into a little bit of storytelling on and for. I've got this quote here. You said this yourself, that there was a day that Jill Bolte Taylor died, the day I had a stroke. But you're still here. You're still Jill Bolte Taylor. And so for folks who might have just kind of caught that in the newspaper, what actually happened the day that Jill Bolte Taylor died?
So let's go to the day before so that we have the framework of I was teaching and performing research at Harvard Medical School. I'm a gross anatomist, so I was teaching cadaver lab, and my research is neuroanatomy. So I was at the top of my game. I was on the board of directors for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, because I have a brother diagnosed with schizophrenia. And I had all this meaning in my life. I was doing what I love to do, and there was purpose. So that was my moment of glory. And then on the morning of December 1996, I woke up and I was experiencing a major hemorrhage in the left half of my brain. And over the course of 4 hours, through the eyes of someone who visualizes how this organ organizes our experience of the world, over the course of 4 hours, I watched my brain deteriorate to the point where I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. I became an infant in a woman's body. And that left thinking portion of our brain, traditional medicine says that's the only portion of our brain that is conscious. And so, as far as the external world was concerned, that Jill Bolte Taylor died that day because I had no language. I could not read or write. I had no recollection of me, the individual. I had no idea where I began and where I ended. I knew nothing of my history. I didn't know what a mother was, much less who my mother was. And I lost the left thinking. And then over a little bit of time, I lost the left emotional tissue. And then as I got weaker and weaker that morning, I lost the right emotional tissue. And I was laying in the bed feeling like a lump of lead with just a connection to the universe with no
Mm.
information about me whatsoever. So yes, I said that Jill Bolte Taylor died that day. And I truly believe that she was gone forever.
Hmm. There's so many folks who might be listening who are still, even in the year 2025, which for me is really wild that we can even find ourselves at any age. Like I'm 42 now, still learning the playbook, still reading the instructions on what this thing is all about, let alone this thing. But for so many of us, we are raised with funky ideas about what our brain is and what our mind is and how it works and how to understand the voices within. But for those who's still working on this idea of left hemisphere, right hemisphere, can you break that down to the 101 level for us?
So as you look at a human brain, of which I have brought a model, as we look at these two different hemispheres inside of our brain, they do not share any cell bodies. A cell body is in one or it's in the other. And then we
Mm.
have some 300 million axonal fibers passing between them through a structure called the corpus callosum. And because the right hemisphere and left hemisphere not only need to know what's going on in the other one, but they
Mm.
are going to influence each other. They will either inhibit the other comparable cells in the opposite hemisphere and become dominant, or they will communicate at different levels. So we have one brain, but it is divided to two separate halves. From my experience with stroke, there is, when I lost the left hemisphere, I lost a group of cells that define me, my ego center. I am Jill Bolte Taylor. When those cells in that frontal lobe went offline, another group of cells back in the parietal region of that left thinking tissue went offline. And you look at yourself and you think, oh, I begin and end where my skin meets air. But I don't begin and end where my skin meets air because I'm this massive combination of atoms and molecules plus energy. And we know that
Mhm.
there is an energy of these 50 trillion cells that make up our whole body, and they are nothing other than mass and energy. So we radiate. So the perception of myself got wiped away as well. So, if I have the other really important thing about that left brain to consider is that the left emotional cells, so we have emotion in each hemisphere and we have thinking cells in each hemisphere. And the left emotional cells, these are so miraculous. These cells step out of the consciousness of the present moment into a past experience. First of all, this
Mm.
really to me is mind-boggling. How could a group of
Yeah.
cells step out of the present moment and create a perception of awareness that has already come and gone? I mean, that alone is to me mind-blowing. And then the
Yeah.
other thing, because now we have cells that step out of the present, we can have linearity across time. So we have a
Mm.
past, a present, and a future linearity in that left hemisphere. The right hemisphere is a completely different experience. There is no me, there's no I, there's no ego in there. So I literally am simply in the present moment. This is a present moment machine, which is why in an instant we can bring our mind into the present moment and look at our shoes and say, shoes. Shoes, me, you, hi. I can laugh in the present. I can love in the present. I can grieve in the
Amazing.
present. But the left
Mm.
hemisphere is the ability to look at my shoes and literally go back in time and say, oh, yeah, I picked these shoes because of X, Y, and Z this morning. So
Mm.
the right hemisphere is a right here, right now, present moment machine. And it is dynamic. It's available. It's enormous. It's expansive. It cares about the big picture of everything. While the left hemisphere is about me and how do I fit in linearly across time into a world that I then use that left hemisphere to fit myself into a social norm because it defines the right and the wrong and the good and the bad of that social norm. So we end up with these
Mm.
two very different ways of perceiving the world, and we all have them.
Yeah, wild. Um, oh, it's
Wild. I
there's
love that.
fireworks.
Yeah,
There's
wild.
fireworks
That's
up
like
here.
the quote of all.
And it was just like boom, because there's a whole set of conversations that I can see in front of us. But again, before we get into what is lost in not being a whole brain thinker, what is the advantages of having an organizing structure that makes these parts of us cohesive? But before we get there, there's a part of the story
Yep.
which is still your recovery,
Yes.
which is how you went from that day and that experience and the loss of left and what you experienced as the left came back online over a series of years. Can you walk us through how you recovered? What was important in your recovery? And I think from a metacognition perspective, what you noticed about yourself and the critical choices as that all came back together for you.
Certainly. So the stroke happened, and I had devastation inside of my anatomy.
Mm.
So I had no language, couldn't walk, talk, read, write, recall any of my life, knew nothing. And then I arrive at the emergency room at Mass General Hospital. They saved my life,
Mm.
and they're just stop the bleed. And they send me off for 2.5 weeks, and then I come back, and I have a craniotomy, and they remove a blood clot the size of a golf ball. And that blood clot was blocking all kinds of things going on inside of that left hemisphere. And once that got removed, now during that period of time, I had zero language going on inside of my brain. I had no language saying I'm hungry. I had no language saying I'm Jill. I had no language at all. So I sat in an absolutely 100% silent mind with no language for the 2.5 weeks before surgery, and then for another 2.5 weeks after surgery.
Goodness
So
me.
I literally sat in the middle of an absolutely silent mind, just observing and experiencing the present moment because that's all I had. So I had none of this information that we store. I mean, I look at the bookshelf behind you. Well, that's all
Yeah.
information. And that's what it's
Yeah.
like because each of those books is like a cell, and you open that up, and then there's all this information in there. And that's how we organize information as a left hemisphere organizing data. None of that was available to me. It felt as though I knew all this stuff, but it felt like it was all crammed in a filing cabinet, pushed just beyond my reach. Like I
Mm.
knew how to have language, but I couldn't find it anywhere in my head. I mathematics was it was gone for 4 years. So in the silence, I mean, just imagine the peacefulness of being in the
Yeah.
present when we really allow ourselves to shift into I'm going to close off everything before me, around me that has come in the past and worrying about the future and all the details. I'm going to quiet that left brain. And this is, of course, a multi-billion-dollar market of meditation and how to silence the
Mhm.
left brain. But the goal really isn't to silence it. It's kind of like just
Right.
shift your focus away from it for just a little while. And what you'll find is that what you focus on grows, and what you kind of take your focus away from, it will naturally get a little bit quieter on its own. And so, learning to kind of master what is already going on inside of your head, observing what are your skill sets, how good are you at bypassing all that noise of that left brain, because the right brain is where the peace is. It's where the calm
Yes.
is. It's where the pause is. And we're
Hmm.
biological creatures. And as biological creatures, we're not like a robot or a computer where you plug us in and you turn us on and we go, 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 go until the motherboard blows up and you have to get a new one or you die. I mean, we're not like that. We are biological. We have a push, which is this magnificent left brain that we can use to go, 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 details, 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 more details about those details, create in the external world, build that. But then
Mm.
there's the pause. And the pause as a
Yeah.
biological creature is the secret to getting there, is bringing your mind into the present moment. So how do you tell me, Phill, how do you get into your pause? What do you do?
I think it's a great question. For me, genuinely, we use the language of slowing down. Slowing down. You use the idea of a huddle, and I've long called that a roll call. And so for me, there are moments of quiet that are structured into my week. And you know this, that some places on earth are busier than others. I mean, when I'm traveling to the United States, we've joked about this one before, is that it's quite a noisy place, isn't it? People are big and bombastic. There's televisions everywhere, even in fine dining restaurants. There'll be a TV behind the bar. It can be a
Right.
really loud place. Like we turn on the news and there's six people sitting behind the desk going, here's what I think happened. No, here's what I think happened. I think you're wrong. Here's what I think happened. I still come from a country where there's a person who says, here's what happened in the news today. And so, even in the most important
Yeah.
and busy places, I'm looking for quiet. So, I love going to museums where I can literally slow my system down and look for the pause. I love sitting in sauna a couple of times a week as well, where I'm there, yeah, physiologically, that's useful for my body in certain ways. But in the most part, this is a shared and quiet and sacred place for the people that'll come into this little wood fired sauna just to slow down. And for me, your practice of having a brain huddle, which we'll double click on in a moment, but for me, it's just checking in and slowing down and doing a roll call. Who's here
Mhm.
with me?
Right.
What's going on? What's important? What's hard? And just having the discipline to slow down and
Mhm.
practice. Um, I wonder what that's like for you. I mean, because you talked about the silent mind for at least 2.5 weeks.
Right.
There are some old heads who have practiced their entire life. I mean, I'm pointing here to John Kabat-Zinn's book, and then right
Mhm.
next to it, like different philosophers, and this
Right.
sense that folks would meditate for a lifetime
Mhm.
just to get a glimpse at the
Mhm.
silence that you talked about. How much of that has lingered with you over the years since? Because people talk about having a brush, like a flirtation with the
Right.
silence and
Right.
being transformed forever.
Right.
What were the most sticky things for you? Like, what's stuck with you over the very long term?
So I made some very specific, purposeful decisions as
Mm,
I became more well. And I recognized that after the surgery, I was going to use what I still had to rebuild the circuits, first of the right emotional system.
mm,
And the right emotional system is getting back into my body. So I see
yeah.
the right thinking tissue as this portal to whatever is beyond us. It is, call
Mm,
that a universal consciousness, call that God, call that Allah, call that whatever you specifically are comfortable with calling that. But it is a
yeah.
consciousness that is simply the movement of the particles around in space. And in that
Yeah.
space is a deep peacefulness. And to
Yeah.
be part of that, to feel that feeling of transcendence where I'm a great whale gliding through a sea of silent euphoria is a reality that was really all I had for those 5 weeks. And then as my body began to come back online, my right side was paralyzed because, well, it was paresis. It was weakened. It had gone paralyzed and then it got better and it became paresis. Then it was a matter of how do I get back into my body? And so I would walk. I would learn to walk again. I would learn to talk again eventually, but I would walk on a regular basis. And I learned that I only had so much
Mm,
energy. And I had to
mm,
put my energy into getting the body back or into getting my mind back. And the
mm.
mind was so traumatized that I was committed to getting the body back first. And so eventually I would walk, I would try to walk fluidly. And engage with a water bottle. I would kind of eventually toss it from arm to arm in order to strengthen that right arm again and to have rhythmicity. And the beauty of
Yeah.
being human, one of the beautiful things is that we are bilateral. And whatever we do to on the left side, half of those fibers, they come into the spinal cord, half run up and go into the brain for control of that. But a bunch of those fibers go over to the opposite side. So I could practice getting better and doing movement patterns on the left. And then that would actually strengthen what was going on in the right, even if I didn't have that ability. So goal number one for me was getting back into my body.
Yeah.
And yes, the silence that you felt that you need, for me, that's the right thinking tissue. For me, for the present moment, I go to disco. Because
Yeah.
I'm a disco girl, I'm 66 and I am right into disco. And disco, the weird thing about me and disco, it's the only music that I really dance to, but it gets my heart, my head going.
So
And the
good.
thing about
Yeah.
the head is as it beats, the pelvis is at the opposite end and it goes. And so that's how I get me going. So girls just want to have fun, whatever, the disco, hot stuff, baby, this evening. I get into the body. And as soon as I feel that rhythm, I know I'm in the present. I'm not
Yeah.
worried about what other people are thinking. I try to do it not when I'm in a meeting. But it works for me. And how does one master the skill of bringing their
Beautiful.
mind into the present moment? Because
Yeah.
the present moment is a magnificent place and everything
Mhm.
is possible. Creativity is here,
Right.
openness, expansiveness, people, loving, caring, engaging, getting into mischief, getting arrested. I mean, that's the problem with too much right brain, but, it's fun.
I mean, it's so fun. The way that you describe the right brain, that it's the feeling, it's the sensing, it's the place of gratitude, it's the place of awe, it's
Yeah,
timeless, it's spacious,
yeah.
it's freeing. There are so many leaders who'd be listening to this going, is that genuinely possible for me? I mean, I've read reports of other people who have read, My Stroke of Insight, and they describe it as almost a simulacrum, like it's like a trip report from their psilocybin experiences.
Right.
There's something so expansive and mystical with regards to being more to the right that feels so out of reach for so many folks, either because of family of origin, because of stories of what
Right.
is right and wrong. But this isn't something that's out there. And I
Mhm,
think that's what is so fascinating
mhm,
about this conversation for leaders to
mhm.
be a more integrated leader, that this isn't external to, that this is internal to. And this is something that ideally we should be dallying with and dancing with in every moment or every day.
Right. It's interesting that you say that because when I work with corporations, I'm brought in either by the right creative side who is saying those
Right.
people don't understand us at all. Or that I'm being brought in by the left structural portion of the
Yeah.
company saying those creatives, they terrify us. And it's
Yeah.
like, but the thing is, we're all wired for all of
Mm.
it. And
Yeah.
I can train myself to become more creative. I think the
Right.
real key is the left brain is so linear. It is so thinking and analyzing and rationalizing and organizing information. Well, those are great skill sets. And that's one of the
Mm.
things that I encourage people who are really more right brained if you want to get into your left brain, it's simple. Go sort something. Go sort the books. Go organize the spices on your rack alphabetically.
Mm-hmm.
Go sort, because sorting and categorizing and organizing is the primary behavioral key of that left thinking brain. And the better we are at it, now we're sorting personnel, we're sorting product, we're sorting marketing, we're sorting advertising, we're these big categories, and we're really good at
Yeah.
it because we've been doing that so much. But if you want to step into the right hemisphere, I encourage people to pause. And pause
Mm.
often feels like a total violation to the left emotional group of cells, because the left
Mm.
emotional group of cells are me and mine, and it's primal and it's alert, alert, it's threat detection, it's danger, danger. And if
Yeah.
I'm going to step out of me and what I do, and produce,
Yeah.
produce, produce, that feels like a death. And it's
Yeah.
terrifying. It feels terrifying. So what I say is, it's okay. We're not going to put it
Mm.
away for long, but focus for 2 seconds on your breath. Just one big breath. Breathe in, hold that. You can only hold your breath in the present moment. Hold that and then
There you go.
breathe out. Okay, that was
Mm.
like 4 seconds and we were present. Oh my gosh. Okay,
Yeah.
now can we do two breaths? We have to start somewhere. If you're sitting
Mm.
somewhere, just think about wiggling your big toe. You have to think about
Mm.
that. Wiggle your big toe. And right now, your brain is in the present moment, wiggling your big toe. And that's not threatening, is it? Now, the
No.
left brain's
Goodness
saying,
no.
this is a total waste of time. This woman is trying to get me to wiggle my big toe. But the benefit is that our open possibility, our creative juices,
Yeah. Sister.
ability to rearrange what is over there in the left hemisphere on linearity, to repackage that in the pause, this is where our genius comes in. And so if
Yeah.
you really want to be creative and
Mm.
productive, then
Mm.
embracing the benefits of both sides of the brain is what you're designed for. And let me say this, I truly believe, I'm going to make a big statement, and then I'm going to make another big statement. I do believe that AI is changing the world. Of course it is.
Yeah.
And that humans who use AI will go leaps and bounds beyond people who do not use AI. You
Mm-hmm.
agree with that statement?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Okay.
Fair.
Now, and
Tick.
this statement backs that up. People who go into the world at this point as a
Mm.
whole brain will benefit leaps and bounds beyond those who are only functioning as a left brain.
Mm-hmm.
The time has come for us to wake up our whole brain, because people are waking up their whole brain. Whole brain
Mm.
living is, we have been functioning in a society up to this point in time where the medical traditional world says only 1/4 of our brain is conscious. The left
Yeah.
emotion, and right thinking parts of our brain are all a part of our unconscious. But what would our world be like? What would my life be
Beautiful.
like if I woke up all four parts of my brain and I could pick and choose in an instant who and how I wanted to be, and take some responsibility for
Amazing.
all of my brain? And now I have power to choose who and how I want to be in the world in any instant. And my emotional reactivity, I look at through a completely different lens that says, this tissue is designed to save my life and protect me. But it is supposed to be information. It is not supposed to be a lifestyle.
Holy smokes. I mean, that sense of choicefulness that you're describing, that people can switch between. For me, there's a relationship between choicefulness and optionality. For me to choose, I've got to be able to see the options. For me to have high optionality, I've got to have the insights to begin with. So, can you walk us through that leap from, we've got left and right hemisphere, but now we've got four parts?
Yes.
That sense of here, 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 and here. Can you walk us through the characters, the archetypes, and what are the pockets that we can choose between?
Certainly. So when we look at the brain, again, each hemisphere has an amygdala, a hippocampus, and a cingulate gyrus. And those are the
Mm,
primary groups of cells that make up our emotional system in each hemisphere. And, this
mm,
myth that the left hemisphere is rational and the right hemisphere is emotional, that's just not true. We are evenly bilaterally divided in each hemisphere for emotional tissue and thinking tissue. We have higher
mm.
cognition in the left hemisphere and higher cognition in the right hemisphere. So we end up from a neuroanatomical perspective with these four very distinctive groups of cells. And each of those groups of cells work hard in order to manifest a constellation of
Mm.
interrelated skill sets that end
Yeah,
up looking like personalities as we express them in the world. Make sense?
it does.
So when we're looking at it, I have named these characters 1, 2, 3, and 4 only because I have to have some way of communicating with them. So,
Hmm.
and because I know each of these character profiles and skill sets so well, I give them a name because my left thinking brain feels absolutely nothing like my right emotional brain. Completely
Yeah.
different personality profiles.
Mm,
So when you get familiar with identifying steps, number one is going to be observing yourself and exploring when am I each of these and recognizing when I am exhibiting each of these behaviors so that I can then feel what they feel like inside of my body and become more familiar with that because then that gives me the power to become that and embody that by choice in any moment.
mm,
And since they feel differently, it becomes pretty easy.
mhm.
Shall we begin with character one?
Please do.
Okay, so character one is what I call the left thinking tissue. So we already mentioned a little bit about this. This is the portion that traditional medicine says this is our conscious brain. It is our alpha type personality. It has me, the individual, at the center of the world. The world revolves around me, the individual, and it gives me the boundaries of where I begin and end. It has Broca's area, which is language for the ability to create sound. Dog. Dog is a sound. And then we have cells in the back of that area, Wernicke's area, which is comprehend. So when I say dog, you're probably thinking of a dog or
Mhm.
something, but we're communicating with language. This hemisphere also has reading and writing and arithmetic. We know 1 + 1 = 2 because of this tissue. That portion of my brain was gone off for 4 years. So people would
Yeah.
say to me literally for 4 years, Jill, what's 1 + 1? And I would just go hunting and I couldn't figure out what a one was. So I knew nothing about mathematics. And then everybody would hold a finger up and say, a one, a one, it's everything. And I would say to myself, well, if a one is
Mm.
everything, then how can you have another one? I mean, it made no sense. So, this
Yeah.
portion of our character one allows us to place meaning and understand abstract symbolic systems. Okay.
Mm.
And then it has the boundaries of where I begin and where I end. So, character one, I call mine Helen. Hell on wheels, she gets it done. She has language. She knows how to use the telephone. She runs my business. She runs my to do list. She's busy. She's excellent at what she does. And she knows where she hangs out. She has her job to do, and she's great at that. And I love Helen,
Yeah.
and thank God Helen's back. But when Helen came back online, she literally said to the rest of my brain, "Good job, girls. Now I want to be the boss again." And the rest of my brain is going, no, no, you have different values than we do. For you, we are the center of the circle and everything else is around us. But for the right brain consciousness, we are a part of the circle with all the others. We are a part of the bigger picture of humanity and of life on this planet and in relationship to this planet. So the two
Yeah.
hemispheres end up with very different value structures. And that character one is always wanting more, more, more. Oh, we hit that point. Okay. We're going to celebrate it for maybe 3 hours. And then tomorrow we're going to wake up and we're raising the bar. More, more,
Yeah.
more. Always strives
Yeah.
for more. It's never satisfied with what it has.
So this is Helen. This is hell on wheels. I mean,
This is
there's
hell
not a
on
leader.
wheels.
There's not a leader with this conversation in their ears that doesn't recognize their own version of Helen. Now, theirs might be called Bob or Jill, or maybe just even recognized at an archetype level. But there's more than just
Yeah.
Helen alone, isn't there?
There is.
Who's maybe like the diametric opposite, or who sits in kind of difference to Helen? Walk us through the other characters.
So Helen then is that character one left thinking. Right below
Yeah.
that is the left emotional tissue. And the way
Right.
that the mammalian nervous system has evolved over time is that the thinking tissue has evolved after the emotional tissue. And so
Huh.
what this means is that as you look at the brain and you look at the 12 pairs of cranial nerves, the information streams into the emotional system first, and then it goes up into thinking. And if the amygdala says alarm, alarm, alert, alert, threat, threat, no good, push it away, I don't want that, that's
Yeah.
a danger, then it shuts down the hippocampus that allows us to learn and memorize new information.
Oh, goodness.
So this is saving our life, and it is
Yeah.
running constantly in the background. And
Huh.
it is our emotional reaction, our knee-jerk response when new information is coming in from the present. The past is streaming in this character too, and keeping an eye out
Wow.
for anything that I've ever seen in the past that looked like a threat that I want to push away.
Yes.
So we don't have to, I know don't step off a curb in front of that bus because I know
Yeah.
what will happen because of this
Mm.
group of tissue. And what it does then is it kind of rants and raves and it screams and it gets mad and it gets sad and it gets addicted to things and it has craving and it plots and it is not the nicest, most pleasant part of us usually because it is biologically programmed to save our lives. And when something looks like a threat, some of us get big and ugly. We fight, flee away from it. We fawn, we play dead. We have a response in order to save ourselves. So this is
Yeah.
a really important part of who we are, but most of us will go to therapy and want to have it cut
Yeah.
out
Yeah. I
because
mean,
it's
it's
getting
so
in our
interesting.
way.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you landed in there at pace. I mean, because I know that we're not done with the characters yet, but even as we pause here for just a moment, there are so many folks, myself included, by the way, who grew up in a household that was very intent on describing what was right and what was wrong, the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, even down to the sense of your patterns of thinking and the way that you're supposed to feel in life.
Wow.
But that sense of feeling often gets stunted and maligned and shunted or put aside. I've got a buddy, Dr. Tyler Hudson, who says, I shouldn't should on myself. He said, Phil, you're shoulding on yourself again. And there's that sense of I should or I shouldn't. This is right. This is
Right.
wrong. What's the role of judgment or shutting down these parts of ourselves in the way that it makes it so much more difficult to either be present or stops us from being involved in a more integrated whole brain experience of life? Presumably, this is not a helpful process.
Yeah, as soon as that left brain says right, wrong, good, bad, and that's the box I have to fit myself into, then I have automatically looked at my emotions and said, emotions are messy, they are not good, and we cannot be
Mm,
that,
mm,
especially for males in our society. It is not okay to feel. But
yeah.
again, since we are feeling creatures who think at a neuroanatomical level, the energy, I mean, just think about what are these brain cells? They're just a bunch of brain cells, and which are made up of matter, atoms and molecules and structure and energy. And that energy, if it gets squashed down, it's like you have a pipe and you block the flow of the pipe. Well, what's going to happen to the pressure? It's eventually going to erupt. developed. And then it looks pretty ugly. And I may lash out violently. I may lash out at myself with addictions, cravings.
Great
I may
analogy.
lash out
Yeah.
at you and just be angry and ruin my relationships. So we are feeling creatures who think we need to let the
Huh.
energies of our emotions, we're wired for this. I don't want to be in a box where I cannot feel grief. Grief is like stopping
Beautiful.
up the love that I have. Let's say I have someone and they pass away, and grief, a wave of grief hits me, and I try to shut it down and push it away. Well, grief is
Yeah.
an energy that has nowhere to go because now I don't have that person to go love on them and tell them how much I
Yeah.
love them. What am I going to
Goodness.
do with that? And I'm going to really shut myself down. What's that going to do to my stress circuitry? What's that going to do
Yeah.
to the cortisol in my body? What's that going to do to the overall wellness and health of my cells making up all of me? It's just going to provide an unhealthy environment. We biologically need to let ourselves flow. Our design, if you know, you're talking to leaders, everything is about design of product. Well, you're the product, and this is the
Beautiful.
design. And we have all four parts of us. So why would we shut down three-quarters of what we are instead of finding the advantage and healthiness of all of them contributing to all of me as a human so I
Yeah.
can live a full life. I can run that character one and do my business and get a lot done. I can feel my emotions. I can value my relationships in
Mm.
that left brain. And then I can also, in the right hemisphere, in the right emotional tissue, what I call character three, this is experiential.
Right.
What does it feel like to be alive? You know, I have seen so many strong character one leaders at their parties where they invite me for these corporate meetings, and at night we got a
Yeah.
party, right? And so many of them are doing this. Boom, boom, boom. The head is moving and the body is not moving. And I think to myself,
Mm.
honey, you got a pelvis, you got some shoulders, you got some rhythm. Can we like get a little
Yeah.
body? We are 50 trillion molecular geniuses, one organism. And if all I'm using is this tiny little group of cells, what about the health and well-being? Because I want to be happy. I want to have joy. I want to have new possibilities. I want to play with other people. I want my relationships to be fun and healthy and messy because the right hemisphere is looking at new possibilities, new ways of
Mm.
doing it. And again, the left little character two portion of that emotional left emotional says, "Oh my God, if I go have joy, I've got to die. This is death." And it's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, just set it aside. You know, you're literally centimeters over there." It's like just for like, okay, let's go back to breathing again. You know, start
Yeah.
somewhere. Yeah.
It's so useful. I mean, I interrupted you halfway through the match between the characters. So you've got character one left thinking, character two left emotional. Dance us through character three and character four. And then would you describe what happens for leaders, for humans who are willing to do the work to find the relationships between these four characters?
Absolutely. So character three, the right emotional portion right here, right now. It's not about me. It's not about worrying about what I look like. It's not about all that right and wrong, good and bad judgment that you described very well earlier growing up. It's not about that. It's about being in the present moment. And how do I sit? And I might lean back and I might get loud and I might play with a puppy or I might go for a walk in the woods, but it's experiential. What does it feel like
Yeah.
to be in
Yeah.
the present moment? I dive into water. I love this. I live on a boat half a year. Dive into the water. I feel it is so present, right? You can't dive into cold water and like not be right there. So I
Uh-huh.
feel the pressure against my body. I feel the temperature and I feel wetness. I am capable of feeling and knowing what is wet in the present moment. I can't,
Mm.
how would even one even describe what is wet feel like to the left brain? It would have to go to work and work real hard on that, right? But to know what it feels like, that's present. A lot of people will go to the shower and just get in the shower in order to be in the present and let the water hit them as they are. Why do we love to walk in the rain? Some of us do love to walk in the rain
Mhm.
because we don't worry about our suits and we don't worry about our shoes and we don't worry about all that. We're in the present feeling. And the beauty of walking in the rain is as that water spatters on us and defines for us that boundary, we feel more expansive because we expand automatically with the rain. So the experience, what does it feel like to be in your body? What does it feel like when you're in a jam session doing music and nobody's got music and all we're doing is like, let's have a hootenanny and make some noise. And then eventually maybe we'll get a pattern going, right? And we can jam into a rhythm and it's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And who knows what comes out of our mouths because we're in the present moment. There's no right, wrong, and good and bad. There's no judgment
Yeah.
there. There's simply being in our
Mm.
bodies, having the experience of being alive. And the advantage of that is now I am out of the box of what is right, what is wrong, what is already known. And what is already known is already known. It's already a product. It's already an idea. It's
Really
already set in stone. I want a new possibility. How do I take my business to the next level? And I do that by
amazing.
looking at what I'm doing, what are my skill sets, and what else is out there that I find really interesting and cool that I might be able to innovate off of. And it's a true spirit of entrepreneurialism,
Yeah.
new
Goodness
possibility.
gracious. Holy smokes. I mean, you met me at the past. That question of for the leaders who are prepared to really practice. I mean, we use the word practice with a capital P because for some it doesn't come naturally. Families of origin, engineering, social structures, all of the things. But that sense of step by step and inch by inch and practicing it and maybe willfully being deliberate about it. But for me, the genius, I think this has really unlocked something for me right here, right now. That we are feeling creatures who think. And even like the succinctness of that phrase, we are feeling creatures who think. And therefore, the importance of recognizing my own threat perception. There are so many leaders that we support who are really on the frontier, like vanguard leaders who are driving us all forward and creating things that have never been created before. And it's full of unknown unknowns. And then all of that landscape is interfacing with that sense of, am I doing it right? I'm afraid of getting it wrong? What if I let people down? What if I make a fool of myself? And so sometimes the threats aren't in the landscape, the threats are even in our own psyche. Can you teach us how can we lower the emotional heat that allows the thinking to thrive? Or is that a twist in the narrative that this is a set of stories that are getting in the way of a more expansive feeling based experience of life?
I think that that's a beautiful question. And I think that my answer is if I value all parts of my brain, if I value the gifts they each bring to me, then I recognize that this character one left thinking is really brilliant at doing stuff well. And
Yeah,
that the emotional part of it drives my passion to do stuff really well.
yeah.
And it's really good at pushing away all those other things that appear to be a distraction. But if that
Mm,
portion of the brain defines as part of the distraction the value of what I gain of what's going on in my own right hemisphere, then I have
yeah.
cut myself off from my own genius. My
Mm,
genius is not in my left brain. My genius is in the pause because in linearity, things are already going, they are established and they're going somewhere already defined. And that's great if you're an engineer and you want to build something, you need to know all those parts. and they all fit together just right mechanically because the left brain does that. But how are you going to sell that machine? And maybe you create a machine and it's like, okay, I'm going to create a car. And then maybe and that gets established, then it's like, but then I can adapt that and stick some wings on it and I can make that thing fly. And then maybe I can get it to go underneath water, because the
Mm.
possibilities of how do we expand what we already know is in the right hemisphere, right here, right now, new possibilities. But I have to be
Uh,
willing to say, I love my box. I live in my box. I love my box. My kids don't like me very much because I want them to live in the same box, or we fight because that's what we do. And but just this is one of the things that I've been working with physicians. Very high level of suicide in the population of physicians, and I care
wow.
deeply about this. And part of this
Yeah.
is because they are held up as the ultimate of mental health, and so how can they not be mentally healthy, be or have
Yeah.
mental health problems, because they're the ones who's supposed to fix the rest of us, right?
Goodness
So
gracious.
so I
Yeah.
work with these, and I encourage them. I want you outside the emergency room the next time you're on your way into your big old thing. Go 5 minutes early, take a piece of chalk, and draw a hopscotch right out of the emergency room. And then as you go in, hop in. And then at lunch, go hop out. And then hop back
Wow.
in. And then at the end of the day, hop out. That brief little 30 seconds of, oh my gosh, I'm a happy little child again. I can have joy, and I don't care who's watching me as I do my little, steps in my hopscotch. But there's this feeling that happens, it overcomes us. And if we have lost our little child, creative, happy part of who we are, we deserve to know that part of who we are, because it's a beautiful, beautiful part of who we are. And I'm not saying go be an irresponsible kid. I'm
No.
saying go play, go find an ounce of joy. Where in your day do you have joy built in? When do you do
Beautiful.
something that your body wants to do? When do you just like take off your glasses and sit back and rub your face and go, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, I got skin, I got eyeballs. Where's the gratitude? And character
Yeah.
4 is the gratitude.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Right thinking portion is gratitude. Oh my gosh, I'm alive. I'm alive. Just the odds we had to beat to be alive. And we are
Wild.
so out of gratitude, out of synchrony with the magical creation of the universe. Call it what you want. Talk about it what you want, label it what you want. But oh my gosh, there are all these rocks spinning in space and everything in perfect orientation so that there could be water, there could be life. And oh my gosh, we're not microbes floating around as a single celled organism. We are this multicellular masterpiece called human life. And I have a whole brain, and I want to know all parts of my brain, because then I'm a whole full force human. And that's what I
Oh,
want to
it's
be.
it's wonderful. Holy smokes. You know what? What comes to mind here for me now is you might have read Jackie Weir's book, the top regrets of the dying, the top 5 regrets of the dying. Did
Yes.
you ever see that book?
Yes.
And she lists, this is the Australian gerontologist working with folks right at the end of their life, and really thoughtfully over many, many years capturing, hey, give us some life wisdom, anything that you regret. And there were recurring features, weren't there? And top of the list was, I wish I had lived a life more true to myself, not what others wanted from me. I think about so many of the leaders that we encounter who are so driven to achieve, but it comes at great expense to something that is true to who they are, critical to who they are. It feels like they've stunted and cauterized parts of themselves. And this is the sense. I mean, so many leaders I get to work with in a knee to knee kind of conversational set. Yes, sometimes it's one to many, and certainly with executive teams. But my favorite work is sitting knee to knee in conversations like this. And this is not a foreign concept. I mean, Bob Marley said, and here we are mixing psychology, neuroanatomy, and one of the greatest musicians and prophets of all time. Here's Bob Marley. He said that some people are so poor, all they have is money. Like there are some things that feel that they've come at great cost, but it doesn't have to be that way, does it?
Yeah.
And you're
No.
not talking about, skiving off to the forest or nicking off to an ashram or replacing your suits with saffron robes. What you're talking about is quiet moments in the day, interstitial moments where you
Yeah.
come back to right side, character 3, a sense
Yeah.
of gratitude and awe. I mean, you got yours with a stroke.
I did.
And just being spicy here for a moment, but presumably I don't have to have like major brain trauma in order to find gratitude for myself.
Yeah.
If this was a net new conversation for certain folks and they're like, gratitude, huh? Being in awe. Oh, yeah, I guess I am alive. Well, actually, this is really wild. Literally to be consciousness in a meat suit. This
Right.
is extraordinary. How would you inch somebody into those moments in the day that in the present moment make it just feel so different and give us access to the genius that you're so beautifully describing?
Okay, this is one of the okay, I'm gonna start easy and then I'm gonna go weird on you. Um,
Go for it.
we all know what it feels like when you stand on the beach, right? Little
Yeah.
character 2, the unhappy part of us is like saying, "Oh, it's gritty, it's in my toes, oh, it's gonna get in my hair, oh my gosh, I don't like that." The character 1, the analytical is gonna be saying, "Oh, wow, look at all these shark's teeth, and oh my gosh, where's my manual on what kind of shells are these anyway?" Right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then the character 3 comes in and it says, "Oh my gosh, joy, glee, oh my gosh, smell the air, feel the sand, feel the wind, feel the temperatures. Oh my gosh, I forgot to put on my sunscreen and I don't care. And I want to go splash in the water. And I want you to go too because we like to do things together." And then the character 4 part of our being is sitting or walking along the beach, taking it all in, watching the character 3s have their joy, watching the character 2s complain about, "Oh my gosh, that's a stinky dead fish." The character 1s have their little phones and they got their little setup all set up for them and they're getting their business done while they're at the beach. But character 4 is just saying it's all beautiful, it's all good, and looks out over the ocean and
Yeah.
watches the sunset and thinks, "Oh my gosh, the miracle of all this universe has conspired for me to be conscious, alive, capable of seeing, capable of smelling, capable
Yeah.
of hearing, capable of loving life. I am alive." And in that wonder of simply being alive, go back to the Corvette. I am alive. That's the miracle of the universe. And it happens to look like
Mm.
us. And then we dress it up and we look at it from the outside and we start judging it and we start
Yeah.
right, wrong, good, badding it into the fixture of no, it's got to look like this or it's not good. And it's like, I love that quote. Like all these people, they don't all they have is money, and you're absolutely right. For me, that stroke cut off my left brain. I was climbing the Harvard ladder. I was a neuroanatomist
Mm.
climbing the Harvard ladder. My mother called me her Harvard doctor daughter. I mean, it was like, it was a big thing. It was my dream.
Yeah.
And then that got taken away. And then it was like, okay, well, not for me. That's not my path. And what it did was it set me free to truly be who I
Wow.
want to be and
Yeah.
rebuild myself, rebuild the skills. But I'm very different now because now I care about humanity and I care about this,
Mm.
our relationship with this planet. And more, I mean, if it's not being done in a conscious way, which really requires a whole brain, and I know that there's this new way of thinking for businesses about is it a conscious corporation? And it's like, but there's still so many of them are still left brain conscious. They're not being
Yeah.
whole brain conscious. And I want that population. And I'll tell you why, Phil. That population is the population that has the resources and the brains and the skill
Mhm.
sets to save our planet and our relationship with it. They're
Yeah.
the ones. And if they are willing to shift, it's all about me and mine and mine and more into the we consciousness. Gee, what a big leap. Well, it doesn't have to be that big of a leap. Using our resources in order to truly help all of us and really looking at the manufacturing streamline to see, is this putting us out of balance? Just being a little bit more aware. But as
Mm.
far as humanity is concerned, we don't know where we're going. But what we do know is the right brainers, they get it because they have themselves in relationship as a part of everything. It is the left hemisphere that will save us if we can convince that population that there's a reason to do so.
Goodness me. I mean, there are still 1,000 conversations to have with you. I'm cautious of time, though, right? Because I know that you've got commitments through the rest of your day. This sense then of the rituals, the
Yes.
practices that would
Yeah.
ground folks so
Yeah.
that it doesn't have to be either stroke induced, it doesn't have to come by way of family
Right.
and or of origin or personality
Right.
profile. The practices of a brain huddle, the
Yes.
practices of literally the sign over your shoulder that says, please take responsibility for the energy that you're bringing into this space.
Mm.
These are micro practices that index up into what I describe as postures
Mhm.
of big L leaders. So here are my practices
Mhm.
and here are the postures. It becomes who I am and how I engage with reality over
Right.
time. What are some of those practices for you? Taking responsibility for your energy,
Yeah.
tick. I'd love for you to talk to us about that. But then also the day-to-day practice of what a brain huddle is so that we can bring
Mhm.
more of us into the
Right.
present moment, more of us into the conversation.
So the practice begins really once you kind of explore. You have to be willing to explore your own psyche and the four different parts of your brain. And you might
Yeah.
find the conversation might just be, I know my character one, I'm that 95% of the time. I know my character two, I'll knee jerk react to, protecting myself. I never see character three. I'm never in my body. I'm never experiential. And gratitude, well, I have gratitude, but it's really for the more that I get with my character one. So
Uh-huh.
I think looking at yourself and being honest about what is your
Yeah.
current status, and then
Yeah.
notice if you're somewhere, how are you when you're standing in line and a little child is just sitting in the little booth, little thing, looking at you, just
Uh-huh.
looking at you. Can you bring your mind to that little child and just look at the beauty of that little child and those little eyeballs looking at you? And tilt your head, and they tilt their head, and now you're having a in the present moment interaction, or do you pull out your phone and you go straight back to business?
Terrific.
Try setting
Terrific.
down the technology, and just once in a while, these little blissful moments of, oh my
Mm.
gosh, that is a beautiful child. Oh my gosh, just that these moments that happen into our day. Try, okay, you want the structure, let's say 5 times in the day. You're gonna, and you can click them off because that's your to-do list, but on that list is 5 times you're going to purposely appear to bring your mind into the present moment or feel what it actually feels like in your body to do
Yeah.
something. Just 5 times. Start with an awareness. And then it's like, oh, that's not so bad. Because I'm not asking that little part of you to die. I'm asking you to expand the possibility. But what gets in the way of the right
Right.
hemisphere experience is the left brain, go, 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 character one,
Uh,
analyze it, rationalize it, do that. And the pain, oh, yeah, I got in a fight with my wife this morning, and so maybe I need to do something because everything's transactional, and maybe then I can send her flowers, and then maybe she'll be nice to me when I come home. Well, maybe that's not it. Maybe it's actually like meeting her somewhere for a walk, start there. Have an
Amazing.
interaction. Pause. It's the pause. What can I do to pause? And unfortunately, the pause can feel like death to that character 2, character 1, or it feels like a total waste of time. And if it feels like a total waste of time, then you know you're one of those people who we're talking to right now. You would really
Mm.
benefit from the pause. So, one of the best ways to pause and bring your mind into the present for the brain huddle, BRAIN. B stands for breath. Breath, breathe. Just breathe in the present moment. The beauty of breath in the present moment is you can increase its frequency. In out, you can increase its amplitude, but we breathe in the present moment. R stands for recognize which of my 4 characters was I before I took that breath? Who called this brain
Terrific.
huddle in the moment? And it's probably going to be a character 1 or maybe even a character 2, but character 2s are usually not very happy and they don't want to get better. They just want to kind of complain and run on automatic for a while. But pay attention, recognize who called the huddle. B, breath. R, recognize who called the huddle. BRA, appreciate that there's 4 of us in here. Now, characters 3 and 4, I might not know you very well, but I'd like to know you better. So I'm willing to step into the present moment a little bit more time and appreciate. And this is why you want to do this, because I know all those character 1s and 2s are saying, well, why on earth do we even want to do that? And this is why. Because character 2 is our pain from our past. It is every reason that
Huh.
I feel a threat, I feel a danger, and I'm going to push it away because it has hurt me in the past. Well, when I'm hurt, what do I want? I'm a little girl. You're a little boy, and I'm hurt. What do I want? I want to be held and I want to be heard. Well, I have that right there in my own character 4, right thinking portion of my brain. I can self soothe myself and say, oh my gosh, yeah,
Mm.
that wasn't the best thing in the world, was it? And then my little pain is loosened up a little and doesn't need to just
Huh.
run and repeat itself. And then I lash out at people who don't deserve that hostility. It's like, yeah, I can self soothe myself with my little character 4. My character 1 can come online and say, little Jill, that I know you really wanted that and you didn't get that. And that's a disappointing. Is there anything I can do to help? Should I make some calls? Do you want me to do something? You want some ice cream? What do you want? And then little character 3 can come on and say, let's go for a walk in the woods and let's just go be with let's see what critters we can find out there and go on an adventure and explore and be in the present. So
Yeah.
be breath, focus in the present. R, recognize which brain part you were in. A, appreciate. E, BR, breath. BRE, appreciate that there's 4 of us in here. And then you know, BRAIN. I'm sorry, I went to breath. B, breath. Bring your mind to the present moment. R, recognize who called it. A, appreciate there's all 4 of us always here. You are never alone. First of all, the mere concept that I am never alone and that I always
Mhm.
have a part of me that can self soothe me and be with me and hold me and love me. Oh my gosh. I mean, is that not your own power? That's like the power of the
Incredible.
design of what we are. We don't have to feel isolated. We don't have to feel
Mm.
lonely. We don't have to feel negatively towards ourselves because we always have love. We got the love of the universe. We are the life and the love of the universe if we let ourselves. So BRAI, inquire. Which one do I want to be in this moment? Okay, in this moment, my little dog comes over and it puts its little paws up on my chair, and I can look at that dog and say, I'm too busy to pet my dog right now. Or I can like pause and I can now choose my character 3 and 4 to be with that little animal and to love that little animal and to share that little fuzzy in my hands and feel that. And oh my gosh, it's so sweet. And it loves me in spite of myself. So that's inquire. Which one do I want to be in this moment? And then N is navigate. Navigate life comes in moments. In this moment, okay,
Mm.
I was going to pet the little dog, but my little child came in screaming and crying. And so now I have to choose back to being a character 1 in order to be a mom again, in order to take care of my baby. And then, so it's a choice, but we have the
Brilliant.
power to choose who and how we want to be in any moment. And that is true power of what we are as whole brain living.
Goodness gracious me. it would literally keep me up at night for the next month if I didn't ask you what's the relationship between these characters and the archetypes that Jung described or the parts that Rich Schwartz describes. Are they aspects of the psyche and these are more neuroanatomical? What's the relationship as you've done the research and the work over the years?
So let's start with parts work and Dick Schwartz.
Yeah.
Most of those, it's going to be the firefighters, it's going to be the exiles. Most of those
Yeah.
characters in parts work and that parts work, family systems, I love that work. But
Yeah.
what's different between that and this is that is really analyzing and working with all the pains of character two. And I don't
Yes.
want to work with all the pains
Uh-huh.
of character two. I want to love them and I want to pull the energy out of that character two pain part of my
Mm.
brain and become my character one, my character three, and my character four. So I have
Yeah.
really healthy, strong parts of who I am. And
Yeah.
and so and I don't and that's the same thing with psychoanalysis. Analyze
Yeah.
it, analyze it, analyze it. Well, we can't analyze it. And this is why. Because it is there to serve us, but it is meant to be information, not a lifestyle. And typically,
Beautiful.
when it comes to
Beautiful.
brain cells, the more often we run any circuit in our brain, it begins to run on automatic and becomes a habit. So I
Yeah.
personally don't want to dig into all of my character two. I want to love my character two, say thank you for that information, but pull my brain back into parts 1, 3, and 4 and thank character two for saving my life when it saves my life. But let it be information, not a lifestyle.
Gosh, you've just put an absolute full stop on a question that is been with me for years. Jill Bolte Taylor, we're hard up against time because surprise, surprise, you're a pretty popular and busy woman, and we are so grateful for you spending time with us. I really think that this has been a good conversation. I couldn't think of an hour better spent in my year.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. Beautiful to chat with you.
Thank you, Phil. I love you. I've missed you. It's so good to be with you and your audience because it's they're making the world go around. How can we make it more of a whole brain world?
Hey friends, what a good conversation, don't you think? As ever, I want to take a moment to ask you what you got from that conversation and the stuff that is sticking in your mind and your thinking. Isn't it incredible that we can eavesdrop on the minds and processes of some of the greatest minds in leadership today? And also, we get to reflect on what we're going to do with it ourselves. The ability to do that is just wild. I don't know what's in mind for you, but what stays with me from that conversation is something Jill said almost in passing. But for me, it rearranges so much of how I'm thinking about leadership in the moment. She said this, that we are feeling creatures who think, not thinking creatures who feel. Did you catch that for yourself? You see, most of us, especially in leadership, have been taught to live as though we were thinking creatures who feel and not as feeling creatures who think. We run on what Jill calls character one. That's the character that is all about doing and striving and solving. And then character two, the part that manages fear, scans for threat, holds everything together. Now, those two parts are useful, absolutely, but by themselves are incomplete. And I think the cost of leading from only those two parts, only half of our brain's creative potential, is enormous. If we were to do that, as so many currently are, we lose the pause, we lose creativity, we lose presence, we lose the part that can actually see possibility instead of just clocking danger. So in this entire beautiful conversation, I think Jill's reminder is quite a simple one for us, but it's also quite radical. That your emotional circuitry is designed to save your life, yes, but it's not meant to become a lifestyle. And I think it's easy to miss that There are too many leaders who override constantly how they feel. They shut down what doesn't fit in the box. They celebrate exhaustion instead of awareness. But to do that is to cut ourselves off from the very parts of our brain that hold joy and create connection and think through a lens of gratitude and compassion and intuition and creativity, the parts that make us human, the parts that make us very, very effective as leaders. And so as ever, I want to pose a question to you as we finish up. It's a simple one. But what part of you is running your leadership? What part of you is running your leadership? Friends, that was a good conversation. I'm so excited for the next one. I'll see you soon.